Hey everyone, so the upcoming SAT exam is nearing, and today we will be going over easy digital SAT hacks that actually work, can increase your score by 50, 100, even 150 plus points and require no extra studying. All right, let's get into the first tip, and that is to think like a mute lawyer on English. Right, the English you do in a classroom is different than the English you do on the SAT. In the classroom, you can make any argument and support it with quote unquote evidence, right? But on the SAT, it's 100% objective. The evidence points to one correct answer and three incorrect answers. So any time that you want to defend your claim like a lawyer, right? What you want to do is point to lines in the text that prove your point, right? That way you can't make any weird inferences in your head that might be prone to bias or previous knowledge, right? You're pointing to pieces in the text that support your answer. And that will always make sure that you have the most objective approach and give yourself the best shot to get those English questions correct. Moving on to tip number 2 is that if you are stuck on a math question, try and think of a formula, because a lot of those SAT math questions, right, their foundation, especially the hard ones, are built upon a formula. So think of like C over A, right? The product of the roots for a quadratic, or negative b over 2a, the axis of symmetry, but also serving as the x coordinate of the vertex. A lot of those, if you think of those formulas, can give you key ideas that can spark things in your head to potentially solve the problem. So that's a great tip for math. Now let's move on to number 3. If it's a weird question, stop stalling and move on. Now here's the thing, right? A lot of you don't actually know that on each module, including module 1 and 2, there are 2 experimental questions. So experimental questions are questions that are unscored. So if you get them correct or incorrect, it doesn't matter towards your final score. College Board just uses that data to see if the question is easy, medium, or difficult for future exams, right? So if you get a weird question you've never seen before, chances are you can't predict this, but chances are it's probably an experimental question. You're gonna be wasting your time if you're spending more time you need to just staring at it because you don't understand it. Moving on to number 4, and that is if reading is not fun, you need to make it fun, right? I know those SAT English passages are just absolutely horrible to read, right? They're just on random topics that nobody cares about, but you need to be interested in what you're actually reading to enable to increase your reading comprehension, right? So trick your brain into thinking that whatever you're about to read is about to be the most exciting and interesting thing that you're the most passionate about, right? You get a 2 to 3 second spark before it starts to fizzle out, but that 2 to 3 second spark, if you train it and practice, and so that can build long-term focus and ultimately increase your digital SAT English score. Now moving on to number 5, that is introduce less variables. Now, not variables as in math, just more variables to your test prep as well as test day. So let's think about it like this. If you wake up, all right, it's Saturday, you go to the testing center, right? But your car breaks down and now you're all stressed. That is an extreme example, but that is such a big variable that's going to negatively impact your grade, right? Or your SAT score because you're under so much stress. So what you want to do instead is make the day predictable, right? Plan out exactly what you're going to do, plan out what you're going to eat, and that way your brain has less to worry about and can actually focus on taking the SAT and doing well on it. Now moving on to number 6, it's to drink water. I mean, come on. Water is delicious. It's good for you. Just drink it. I promise you nothing bad can happen if you just drink water. It's going to improve your SAT score by 10 points guaranteed. Let's move on to number 7. Number 7 is don't be lazy on module 1. Like module 1 math especially. You don't want to be making silly mistakes, right? If you finish the module 1 part with tons of time left, go back and review and check your answers. And if you finish that second round, do it again. I know it seems obsessive and probably unnecessary, but one of those times you're going to slip up and make a stupid mistake, right? We don't want that hurting your SAT score. So just be diligent. I know it can be tedious sometimes, but you have to have that discipline to go back, review all your answers until that final second ticks to 0. All right, tip number 8 is going to start at question 15 for English, and this applies mostly to module 2 because that is where time is of the essence, right? The thing is, those first 5 vocab questions, it's very likely that there are words you do not know. So don't spend 2 to 3 minutes on those questions contemplating, oh, I don't know, maybe this word works or that one works. That is going to be such a bad trap to fall into. Instead, start at question 15. That's usually where you will hit the grammar questions. And so you can hit your stride, right? That carry that momentum throughout the entire section. And so once you get through the grammar section and onto those student note card questions, whatever, then you can go back to the vocab ones and then finish on the most difficult part, which is those long passage readings. Now, most of the times, those long passage readings are actually labeled as the hard questions. So missing those questions will deduct less points from your overall score than missing, let's say, the easy grammar question, which you might risk missing if you are lacking on time, right? You spend 5 minutes on each of the long passage questions because you can't comprehend the text, and that is going to screw you over for the rest of the exam. All right, so let's move on to tip hack number 9, and that is going to be to do the hard Module 2 math questions first. If you do them in order, you're going to fall into a false sense of security and spend more time than you really need to on each of those first couple questions than the ones at the end, right? Like the last 6-ish questions are more abstract and require more application of conceptual ideas as opposed to just plug and chug or relying 100% on Desmos, right? So if you get those questions knocked out of the way, you go back to the start and knock out those questions in rapid succession, keeping that momentum. And so this will give you more leeway and ultimately improve your score. So the last hack here, number 10, is going to be warm yourself up. Now, not literally, it might help. I mean, you could try it, but by warming yourself up in the morning, what I mean by that is that Module 1 reading serves as a warm up for Module 2 reading, right? But you don't want to go into the SAT without having a little prep beforehand. You don't want to stress your mind out too much, but you need to be able to get into the flow of things without being just thrown in. Your brain is fresh, right, from a good night's sleep, but it's not going to be accustomed to the SAT content quite yet. So what I suggest is in the morning of test day, maybe read your favorite book. Just get into the groove of reading, comprehending text, and pulling out key information, right? It's not something that's super difficult to do. I'm sure you all can read a couple pages of a book before the SAT. And yeah, so that wraps it up for the 10 easy digital SAT hacks. I mean, there's no studying, no extra studying required here. If you apply all these concepts, I am very, very confident that you can reach your full potential. So that does it for the video. If you found this video helpful, make sure you check out our other SAT videos, and thank you all for watching.